Hey, happy Sunday. We continue day 3 of this epic fame that I endure from making these videos. I just got done running. I ran. I was running. Me and my shoes laces were tied up and I was out there running. Jenny. So day 3, did some squats yesterday. Probably wasn't the smartest move on my part to get out there and lace up the sneakers and hit the streets. But I'm just trying to again continue to pursue, right? So obviously tomorrow and maybe into Tuesday I won't work legs, just knowing that I did squat yesterday and then did the run today. But all in all, it was a great weekend, great day. I did post on Facebook. I just wanted to kind of tell a little bit about, the picture that I posted. So that is my grandfather's 1929 Model A. I remember as a kid, when I was young. I don't even know how old, 4 to 6 years old, maybe. I'd have to ask my dad. But I remember when he got it, my grandfather got it to a place where it was a roller, right? It was a chassis, the frame only. I'm sorry, frame only, motor on it. He had a milk crate, with a gas tank, strapped to it. Basically, had a makeshift milk crate seat, and that was a victory lap we all took around the yard at a very young age, because that was the longest one, if I recall, that he restored. That was one of his first full restorations, and I used to always joke as a young kid, and even as an adult, I'm like, hey Papa, when are we gonna put an LS in that thing, or tub it out, or make it a street rod? And he'd get real mad. He'd be like, if Henry Ford wanted a damn posi traction or whatever, on a Model A, he would have built the assembly line to make thousands of them, but no. So he would, shut that down real quick. But all in all, I think that is just genuinely who he was. He believed in 1929 Model A's. I'm trying to think. So he had a green one. That was my dad's favorite. And that one, I remember as a kid being in Halloween parades. I remember driving down Newark, Main Street, Delaware, throwing candy and waving to the kids on the street lines, I didn't realize how spoiled I was, I guess. I remember my nanny had a 64 Impala, and she always had Miss Delaware sitting in the back seat, and she'd do her little wave as I drove down and all that stuff. Many car shows. So he had the green one, he had this black one you saw in my picture, and then he made a Woody. So he actually bought a wood frame. The only thing metal on it was the hood and the fenders and the running boards. That thing is still a trophy killer, actually. I was going to say was a trophy killer. It still is a trophy killer. My Uncle Gino's got that, and in my grandfather's honor, he uses that thing proudly as often as he can. Takes it to car shows all the time. So I'm not quite there yet. As cool as Uncle Gino, taking this thing out to car shows, I'm more of a neighborhood around the block kind of guy. I get her out and just putt around the yard and putt around the neighborhood, because it's scary. I mean, think about it. This thing's almost 100 years old, So it's like, and think about this. I was raised as a kid to not even go near it. Like, don't touch it. Don't go near it. And I don't even know why, but in this twisted up situation, they used to put my favorite wagon in the garage in between the Cadillac and the Model A, and I had to somehow get this wagon out without scratching that truck. So I've been brainwashed and raised to not screw that thing up. So I'm a little fearful. So just a little history on how to start these things up, because someone asked me the other day, like, hey man, how do you start that thing? How does it work? Well, it's so primitive, it's so basic, that Henry Ford did a lot of things right at the controls, at the steering wheel, So you have your spark lever, you have your throttle lever. Down below you have a gas valve, you gotta turn the gas valve on. Over to the right you have a choke. You got to pull that out, obviously, to choke it. You can twist it to give it more, make it more lean, make it less lean. Down on the ground where your foot is, that actually you push it's a piece of brass, and I know this because I had to take it apart and work on it. But it's a piece of brass. It's bent, and what you do is you push your foot, and you push, and it takes that bent piece of brass and kind of flattens it out, and then it actually kind of meets the battery directly to the starter, right? That is a dead short is what you're creating. So there's a lot going on. I actually was humble enough to take it to in my previous work. I threw a company picnic, and it turned into a car show. A lot of my previous employees brought their 69 Camaros, their Corvettes, their Porsches, their heck, I had a guy bring 2 Army trucks, or 1 Army truck, one of the 2 he had. And funny enough, the kids and the people flocked to this Model A and that Army truck. Not that I'm saying the Porsches weren't cool and the Corvettes weren't cool and that kind of stuff, but man, do these things draw attention. So I embarrassingly was starting it up, and again, you got to get this thing all right. You know what I mean? You got to talk to the motor. It's got to talk back to you. You only get so much battery life on a 6-volt battery. It's so primitive. It's so basic, but yet you got to understand and listen to the motor. You know, and so I actually almost flooded it out. And I was like, man, I'm never gonna get this thing on the trailer. What am I gonna do? But you know, a good friend of mine, Mike, you know, walked me through the theory of it. You know, because he's very technically minded and he's super smart. And he was like, hey, just pull back on the spark there, and you know, give it less, right? And it should fire right up. And sure enough, it did. So it, you know, again, all the pressure and anxiety I put on myself from my grandfather. You know, I just want to get it right. You know what I mean? I want to know that it's going to start back up and do everything. So yesterday when I pulled it out of the garage, you know, I was kind of curious just to see what this thing was going to do, right? Is it going to talk to me? Is it going to fire up? What's it going to do? And sure enough, it responded, you know, with like it should. So it's just a remarkable feeling. You can't go on Amazon in today's tangible world. You can't go on YouTube and search for it. This is something that, you know, was passed down by my grandfather's hands. I mean, he made tools just to work on these things. He was a very, very brilliant man, well known. You know, I remember as a kid, again, people coming up the driveway and just, you know, hey, Harv, can you fix my truck or my car? And he'd say, well, you got a vegetable garden? What you got? You know, that's barter, let's trade or whatever. And that's just how it went down. And I thought that was all normal, I guess. I didn't realize that not every kid in America had antique cars coming and going out of their lives and whatever. I mean, I was never spoiled with the riches of dollars and whatnot, but you know, I certainly was spoiled with that, right? And I've just never really realized until I've gotten older in this entrepreneurial venture that I'm in, just how impactful my grandfather still is on my life, just by him. I remember we used to go in the garage and work, and then he'd go up to the house and sit on the swing, and we'd sit on the swing, and I'd look over and he'd be knocked out snoring. And then all of a sudden he'd just jump right up and go, come on, let's get to work. 0 plus 0 is 0. Nothing plus nothing's nothing, or whatever he'd say, whatever sayings he'd say. And I'm like, okay. And he'd go back in the garage and he'd start beating and banging, and he'd get frustrated and he would leave and go back out and mess with the garden or whatever. And then come back in the garage, and all of a sudden you hear, hot damn, get this man. And he'd start mumbling a bunch of stuff and whatever else. And I'm like, what? And he got it. Whatever it was getting in his way. He figured it out. And I think that right there is a huge characteristic of who I am as a person. This is why I love what I do. This is why I love the venture that I'm in this home repair, home remodeling business, is because you know, I get to constantly go to people's homes and just solve problems, right? Solve pain. You know, I'm like a doctor walking in with a handbag. You know, basically like, hey, where's it hurt? You know, and then I got to figure out in theory what's the best and most effective and, you know, means to get this thing repaired. So just wanted to share again just the Model A story. It means a lot to me. A lot of people don't know a lot about me, you know, so I figured I'd just take a little time, be a little vulnerable and share, right? So appreciate day 3 listening in, and you know, again, we'll talk. Peace.